All right, there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. This is good
Live.
stuff. I'm going to share. Come on in here. This is going to be a great conversation. Oh my goodness. I've been looking forward to this, and so I'm going to do my share. I'm inviting you guys to participate in the process as well. And do me a favor and share this. Please share. All right. We're going to dive into our conversation, and I'm going to introduce my guests in a minute. And so you don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss any of tonight's talk. This is going to be good. I have Quentin Pacenti here with us. Pacenti, you just was on with me not so long ago, and there was some good
Yeah.
stuff we were talking about.
All right.
Apparently, people like you, Pacenti. The numbers were off the charts.
All right.
Yeah. And then,
Congratulations.
yeah.
Ah,
And then we have the one and only
I'll look
Guy.
for some new clients.
We have Guy Marino joining us. What's up, Guy? How you doing, man?
Hello. How are you, Mr. Miller?
Oh man, it's good. I am wonderful, and it is a joy to have you joining us tonight. This is going to be a conversation a lot of people are going to enjoy, and so I'm excited. Miss Kathleen Hassan, welcome back to the Effective Living platform. You were just here a few weeks ago.
I was. It's wonderful to be speaking with you again and my friends.
I know, right? Well, we're going to dive right in. I'm going to let other people get the chance to share. But I'm Coach Ricardo Miller, and tonight we're going to have a phenomenal conversation, one that I thought would be one for the record books, because tomorrow promises to be historical, and we are going to remember this 10 years from now. Guy is going to remember this, that the night before that election, that particular election, that he remembered talking to the nation. And so tonight we want to focus on why should we vote? Why should you vote? Why should a person participate in this process, seeing that tomorrow is the election day here in the United States. And then there are a number of other countries who are preparing to have election maybe in 2021. And so I wanted to invite some of my distinguished friends to join me on our platform and talk to us about their view on why should a person vote. And so if you're joining us, like Carol Crockett is joining us, she's in Dallas. If you're anywhere in the country here in the United States, let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know. If you voted already, let us know. If you're planning on voting tomorrow, let us know. And then those of you around the world, please let us know where you're tuning in from. I know the Bahamas always represent strong. I know Jamaica, y'all just came out of an election, and during a pandemic, as a matter of fact, they had an election, and so there's just so much going on in our world, and so I want to first and foremost thank my guests for joining me, and so I'm going to first ask them to say just a little bit about themselves. I'm going to ask Miss Kathleen Hassan to just go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself. Our viewers who may not know the name Kathleen Hassan, tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive into our conversation.
All right. Well, as you said, I'm Kathleen Hassan. I'm from the Bahamas, the island of New Providence, the city of Nassau. I am an attorney by profession, and I would say I'm one of the senior attorneys, as they call it. I've practiced now for some 37 years.
Oh my.
I'm a litigator principally, although I deal with other areas. And I'm big into my church. So I look at life from both sides,
Yes.
as they call both the spiritual responsibility and our moral responsibility. So it's a pleasure for me to be on tonight representing the view from the Bahamas. I know you may have another view from the Bahamas on tonight, but you've got a female, so hopefully we will have divergent views to present,
Yeah.
and we won't all stand on the same footing.
I love it.
I have also, I must say, I am from a political family.
Yeah.
They call us PEPs,
Yeah.
politically
Yeah.
exposed persons,
So,
and my family has been in frontline politics really from 1968
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah.
up until last election. Well, right now, up to now, I have siblings, uncles, my dad, my sisters, my brother. It's just been, I know, I think I know all the sides of politics now.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing your view. I'm going to go, since you are representing the Bahamas first, I'm going to cross over to Garlando Moreno. Thank you for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, Coach Ricardo. And I'm so grateful to share this stage with my esteemed colleagues. I, too, am an attorney by profession. I've been practicing law not quite as long as Kathleen has. I graduated from law school in 2008 and have worked in various capacities, and am currently serving as the VP of Compliance for Caterpillar's Rail Division. But this is something that's critically important to me. I've always been someone who feels strongly about civic engagement and the role that we have and the voice that we have through using our right to vote. So very excited today about having this conversation with you all.
Excellent, excellent. Let's go on back over to the Bahamas. Mr. Quentin Percenti, tell our viewing audience a little bit about yourself, sir.
well, my name again is Quentin Percenti. I also practice as an attorney, but a government lawyer in the Bahamas. So I've served for a number of years as a prosecutor. Now I'm back at my old ministry, at the Ministry of Agriculture and Marine Resources, doing some legal work with that particular ministry. But I love I guess, the civic or the community aspect of law, trying to help people at the grassroots level. So I'm a very community-minded individual, and I love to deal with persons who might be disenfranchised, as you would say.
Excellent. Well, I'm super excited about this conversation because I believe this is going to help a lot of people, not only for the election tomorrow, but I think for the mindset of persons going into various electoral processes that requires their engagement, involvement at different levels. And so I am excited about hearing what you guys have to say. Thank you for accepting my invitation. For those of you who are joining us tonight, this is Effective Living with Coach Ricardo Miller. Tonight, we're talking about why you should vote. Tomorrow is election day here in the United States. And my goal from a platform standpoint is to help people to understand there is no effective living if you don't engage yourself in the things that you're supposed to engage yourself in. And so our first question to my colleagues is that elections have consequences. And in your view, what are those consequences? And so please feel free to jump on in here. We're going to probably let the lone lady start us off, Ms. Kathleen. Elections has consequences. As you stated earlier, you came from a family of individuals who've just always been a part of the process in your lifetime. And so in your view, what are those?
Well, certainly elections always have consequences. And the elections in the United States, for example, you have elections on various levels at different times for different posts. In the Bahamas, our electoral process is a single process for the entire governmental structure. And so when we have that, you are making a decision from the prime minister, who will actually be the head of your country, right on down to every other serving member of parliament. That's what we call them. And so out of the group of men or women that are elected, out of that group, there is a choice made of who will be your prime minister if that is the successful. And we have, sorry, let me just say, we have a two-party system. Although there are other minor parties that oftentimes come in, basically and effectively, we are a two-party system in this country, and that is how the predominant voting takes place. And so whichever of the parties, similar to the United States, whichever of our parties win, then out of that grouping will be chosen our prime minister, our cabinet ministers, our executive, and then our regular MPs. That is how our government is formed. Therefore, in our circumstances in the Bahamas, I would say it is crucial for everyone to participate in that electoral process. So in the United States, you have a difference because you have an election for a president. We don't have that sort of system. And so if in the Bahamas, anyone decides they're not going to participate in that electoral process, then they've basically taken their hands off of the government of the country. Their say can never be heard until the next election if they so choose. So not participating is a negative thing for us in the Bahamas because you don't have an opportunity for another 5 years, a solid 5 years. You're stuck with what you get.
Wow, solid 5 years. You're stuck with what you get. Participate in the process. Gailando, the question to you: election has consequences in your view. What are those? Ms. Kathleen just mentioned from the Bahamas standpoint, with a slight understanding from the American model. You want to share with us your views on it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Kathleen wholeheartedly. I don't think there's much difference in the ultimate outcome, right? If you fail to vote, then you fail to really make your voice heard, right? This is a time where, at least in the United States, the distinction between the two candidates couldn't be more stark. And, you know, they have very different views on how are you going to grow the economy? How are you going to address this pandemic? How are you going to take care of the least of these and those that are in social welfare systems? How are you going to deal with issues of foreign policy, right? All of these things are bound up in our ability to say, you know, I trust you and your vision for the country over the next 4 years. And as well, you know, we at this time are having various state issues. So I'm in the state of Alabama, and right now we're also looking at our state senator. We're looking at a number of judicial candidates. We're looking at different constitutional issues for our state constitution. And so this is the way that our democracy works. It's let me have a chance to influence the outcome of the future for generations. So, you know, failing to do that, I think, is basically saying I don't care enough to you know, have an opinion on this issue. So I think you're right. The consequence could be, you know, actually, are they going to institute a healthcare system that's going to take care of me and my children? Are they going to institute an environmental policy that is going to preserve our country for the next, you know, centuries to come? Because decisions we make now are going to have ramifications years from now. But I think all of that is bound up in partly our decision to let our opinion be heard through voting. So I agree. I think the consequences are truly significant for those of us who have the right, hard-fought right in many instances, to be able to vote.
Excellent, excellent. Quentin Pacenti, you spent some time there in Alabama.
Oh, yes.
You're not from Alabama, though. You're from Harbor Island, okay? Please feel free to share with us.
Not a problem. You know, voting is not only your right, but it's also what we call your power. When it comes to, I've used this term, African Americans or black people in general. When we look at when Black people in general got power to vote in the United States in comparison to the Bahamas, you know, we have similar history. If you look at the United States, African Americans first got their vote, the right to vote back in 1867. But when you look at a period of time, they had a period of time where their right to vote, what we call, was suppressed up to 1965 when President Johnson, I believe, he passed the Voters' Rights But in the Bahamas, we also were suppressed in the Bahamas in terms of voting also. Women first got the right to vote in 1962. In fact, my cousin was the first woman to vote in the Bahamas. All right.
Wow.
Everybody know Ruby Ann Cooper Darling. All right. She was the first woman to vote in 1962. And before 1962, um, individuals in the Bahamas voted according to the number of properties they had. So we saw the disenfranchisement of especially people of color and in the Bahamas and also in America.
Wow, excellent, excellent. I was about to ask you, if you follow Quentin Pacenti, most people don't know we went to school together. And
Yes.
Pacenti knows everybody who has ever been his family member, just so y'all know. He knows
Every
his
last
family
one.
line. He studies that thing. Thank you, Pacenti. Hey, you're gonna have to teach me how to do that, brother, because he knows his family line. Hey, listen, let me ask you this question, Miss Kathleen. What would you consider, watch this, would you consider non-voting, giving up your voice? Because I know it's a simple question and it somewhat has been stated already, but for that person who need that answer just as clear as that, would you consider not voting, giving up your voice? Let's talk about that just for a moment, because there are people who will watch this and don't realize they want to talk loud tomorrow on the job. They want to talk loud when they're having that barbecue or hanging with family this Thanksgiving. But the question is, did you vote? Did you vote? And so talk to us, please.
I think if you do not vote, you have given up your right to speak about any of the national issues, because you have exempted yourself from the process and from the ability to influence. See, the time to speak about it is prior to the vote. If you have an opinion, that is something you should be expressing leading up to the vote date. If you decide, I'm not worried about it, I don't care enough about it, voting, the results of voting impacts your community, your nation. And so anyone who opts out, really, they give up the right to even participate, as Guy said, in your healthcare system. We know that there are religious denominations who do not participate in electoral process. If they participated in that electoral process, they would have a right to petition on the things that are fundamental for them, such as whether I can be forced to take blood and so forth, blood transfusion. See, it is not as simple as somebody else's responsibility. It is my responsibility. I have children. I have grandchildren. Well, I have one grandchild at the moment, but I have grandchildren. I have a legacy that I want to build. And I am responsible to making sure that there is something to build on. If I do not say anything and I do not vote, I am abandoning my future generations to whatever somebody else says, whatever somebody else decides. And if you don't vote, you obviously cannot have an impact on your future.
Certainly.
Wow, that is so good. Guy, your opinion on giving up your voice in terms of not voting?
Yeah. Well, I want to be devil's advocate a little bit here and add some of that drama Miss Kathleen was asking for. I have friends who are well-intended, well-meaning, and they feel like abstaining from the political process is a form of protest, is a form of voting in some respect. They look at the candidates that before them. We have these predominantly two-party countries where they feel like they don't agree with either party. And so as a result, they want to just sort of back away from the system. Well-meaning, well-intended, but I probably disagree with that. But I will say this, I think it may be dangerous to vote an uninformed vote too. And I want to talk about that. I think not voting and voting as an uninformed voter are probably equally as dangerous sort of things. I'm like, so I know some people who, if you have no idea of the issues, if you have no idea of the position of the party, and in our day and age, you really have to be able to cut through the campaigns of misinformation, identity politics, and sort of pandering to different people to really see what the heart of the issue is and do your own objective research. But at the end of the day, I do ultimately agree. I think that, like Pasini said, the Voting Rights Act, there's been so many people that look like us that have fought and died for this right. And so failing to exercise it, to me, is just a smack in the face for people who literally risk their lives or sacrifice their lives so that we could have this right that they're taking for granted. So I agree, you know, this is the first year that I haven't had a chance to want to take my children with me because of the pandemic and the long lines that are anticipated. But I want to instill in them, even at this age, that this is a fundamental right. And not only should you exercise it, but you have to exercise it with the care that it deserves. You have to look at that sample ballot, see what the issues are, examine the positions, listen to the debates, because this is your chance to engage in a system that, quite frankly, is probably not made for you. And this is just one avenue in which you step into it to make ultimately our country, our state, and even our subdivision a better place in the long run. So I absolutely agree. I think it's a travesty to walk away from it because it's a sacred right that so many people fought and died for.
Man, that is so good. I'm going to come back and talk about being informed. I would like for us to talk more about that in a minute. I love the fact that you added that. But Pasini, giving up that right, I know you're and you said it's no longer inner city. You know, what is it called?
Urban.
It's urban. Okay. so I know you know some guys there in Union Village who say, man, I ain't voting. It don't make no difference. But the term giving up your voice by deciding not to vote, your opinion on that?
You know, in the Bahamian context, we generally have a very high voter turnout. In fact, it normally pans in the 90% range. However, we still have that group of individuals, Mrs. Hassan mentioned it, those religious, I call them individuals who don't vote. And then we have some individuals who just said, hey, my vote will not count in the overall scheme of things. But what I always tell individuals, especially in the community, your vote is your power. All right. You have an opportunity to participate in the process of electing individuals who you believe, after you would have weighed in the balance, the individual who you believe will represent you in the Bahamian context for the next 5 years. All right. And so I always advise them, look at the opportunities, because next year you cannot complain if you didn't vote and you were able to make a difference. And we all are aware in the Bahamian context and also in the American context that one vote can make a difference. All right. We had many elections in various states and provinces where the voter, it was almost a tie position. So the margin of error is sometimes small. So those individuals who don't exercise their rights to vote normally can make a major difference.
Wow, Miss Kathleen, let's talk about doing the homework or doing the necessary work to ensure that when you get there, you know, I voted early. I don't know if Guy, did you vote early or are you voting tomorrow?
No, going tomorrow.
Is it a common practice to do it on the day? That's your thing. You like doing it on the
Yes,
day?
yes. I like to get my little "I voted today" sticker. I like to kind of get in line and, you know, all that fun stuff.
He likes the excitement. That is the excitement of the voting day.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. No, I did early voting. The line, there was no line on the day that I went to the courthouse. But when I was strolling through, and I'm glad I picked up a pamphlet about a week earlier that gave me some understanding on who I was voting for and all of the various things that was on the ballot that you needed to look into. I mean, it was amazing, and a lot of people don't do that. And so, Ms. Kathleen, the responsibility of the person to not just vote a party, but to simply take some time to understand what is it that actually voting for. Could you talk to us about that?
Yes. I think that that is such a powerful thing to do, to know exactly what an individual stands for. You know, in our context again, we had what they call a landslide election. In our election, the last election, the governing party won every seat save for four. 4 seats in the House of Assembly were won by the opposition party. Now, that's a terrific amount of numbers on one side.
Yes.
There is nothing that ought not to be able to be passed with that kind of number in the House of Assembly. Our Senate is our upper chamber, and it reflects pro rata the numbers in the House of Assembly or our lower house.
Yeah.
And so when you look at your individual candidate for party, it's important to really know who they are, what they stand for, because once they're elected, it's sort of out of your hands. Your ability to control is diminished. And so if you just listen to the party line, listening to the party line alone will not help you to choose your candidate or the correct candidate. In our context, we are a majority. Okay, so the majority of the persons here that vote are of the same ethnic background. And so we don't tend to have that much of a difference in who we're voting for. It's not that big a component in an election. And so character is important when you choose. You have to know a person who really has no care about female issues within the country. If you select men, just calling that, I'm talking about the female question. If you select males who you absolutely know from their life experiences and behaviors, they denigrate women, they abuse women, they have no regard or respect for women. If you really elect a candidate like that, you know what you're putting in there. That person has the decision on the inside. Any issue, therefore, that arises about, let's say, some domestic issue, domestic violence, how is that person vote in favor of any laws to improve the condition of women who go through that experience? They don't care. So when you just using perhaps a dramatic example of why it's important for you to know the candidate. We can read any sort of writing that they put out. You know, all of their literature, which they stick in your door and so forth. You can read them, but they may be a fantasy.
Yeah.
It could be a pure fantasy. You know, you see these men, they get out there and they have their wives with them. But in reality, these people don't live as husband and wife. And so you think you're going to elect a family man, a man who has family values and standards, because that's what's important to me as a voter. Guess what? That man don't have none of them, so don't vote for him. I don't care what his party is. You have to understand what is important to improve your nation, the conditions of your people, and you vote according to that. Yeah. So you do need to have knowledge, and you need to have not just the knowledge they put out or what they say. You need to examine what has their life been, what's their standards in life.
Yeah.
And then you know
what their standard in life. You got to do the work. Guy, you started to mention this a little bit earlier. Dive into this from the seat you're sitting in. Being there in Alabama, you know there are a lot of things happening in this country. Talk about having done that and challenging those even before they go, maybe to do a quick Google search on some things that they may want to be aware of before just going ahead and just going all blue or all red or so forth.
Yeah. No, and I'm grateful for this opportunity because this is something that I'm very passionate about. I find that a lot of voters just vote the party line, right? I was raised blue, my mom was blue, so I'm just going to adhere to everything they say. Or, where I'm in a very red state, and so everybody votes this way, I'm going to vote red. And I think that that's really a travesty of our political system because, we're living in an age where information and facts are often in question. And like Kathleen said, you got to do a lot more homework nowadays to really evaluate the candidates and the positions that they hold and even their records, because they're going to really try to put the framing and the gloss on it that makes their achievements look good. I was doing some research today where one candidate said, hey, it's the best economy that we've ever had. Unemployment is at record lows. And then the other candidate said, unemployment is the worst that we've seen since the Great Depression. And you know what I had to do? I had to go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and really discern for myself who was telling the truth here, right? And I think that's what we have to be. I find that, we really have to look at things from our value system, really being informed by that, and then really go issue by issue, position by position, and see who has the best vision for the future that you really want to stand behind. And it may not be 100% on either side. I think one of the reasons I find that a lot of people get very apathetic with their vote is because they're so discouraged by both choices. Esther and I were watching one of the debates with our kids, and my 6-year-old leans over to me and he says, I don't think either of these people should be president, Daddy. And I was like, well, I don't necessarily disagree, but
that's from a 6-year-old.
Right, from the mouth of babes, right? But I realize that, it's very dangerous and it gets very frustrating for people, and we're not willing to put in the work, and it is even a lot more work. But I think that people really do have to take a look. Do the Google search. That's okay. Go to credible sources, talk to your friends, your family, and really be thoughtful about them. I say, look at this person's character, look at their record, right? Because actions speak better than words. And if they have a history, let's see, what are the issues that mean something to you? And then try to use that to be a compass for you in navigating these decisions. For me, I have family members that have a lot of pre-existing conditions, so positions on healthcare are important. As an African-American male, and having a lot of family and friends that have been touched by the criminal justice system, criminal justice reform is a major issue for me, right? Having a mother that's a police officer, right? Having a law degree and equal justice under the law is important to me. Working for a multinational company, or even our country's position on tax and foreign policy are of critical importance to me. And living in the middle of a pandemic, what is your preparedness for what are we going to do next is also of critical importance to me. And so I look at that, I look at the candidates' actions on those things, and I actually will literally have a spreadsheet where I kind of put everything down. And if somebody asks me, why are you voting for candidate X? I can give you a well-informed position and not sort of a soundbite that we're so accustomed to seeing in our day and age, right? Some sort of a campaign ad. No, this is why I think this candidate is the right one. This is why the position I'm taking on this, constitutional amendment is most critical to me in my state. This is why this senator has won my vote, right? And really using that to inform you and guide you. Don't just sort of sit back and just sort of assume it's my party, they'll make the right decision. No, I'm actually independent and kind of go both ways sometimes. But I think that's what really informed voters do.
Thank you very much, Guy. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this is Effective Living. Tonight, we're talking about why you should vote. And tomorrow is Election Day here in the United States. And I've invited some of my friends, be it that two of them are from the Bahamas. I felt as though they were astute enough to be able to just help us even prepared for what's coming for us in the Bahamas. I say for us, even though I'm here in the United States. and then my good friend Guy Marino there in Alabama. So we're talking about why you should vote. And I really would like for you to maybe tag somebody that you think would enjoy this conversation, because there is still time, especially for those in this country, to vote had they not taken advantage of the early voting process. I early voted because I want to watch it from TV. Guy decided that he wants to go on the line tomorrow. And thank God it's not going to be raining in a lot of parts of the country. And today was beautiful, and tomorrow they say it's going to be a beautiful day. But it's a must. And you mentioned something, Guy, and I want to cross this over to Quinton Pacenti. The electoral process, when you're voting, a lot of people don't realize it has an effect on your money. It has an impact on your money. Let's talk about that a little bit, and how even the little man needs to pay attention, because a lot of times people at what they would call the lower level of society would say, you know what, it doesn't really matter to me. But does it really matter?
Certainly, Brother Miller. I think an individual will have to look again at the different political strategies that is being employed, and also to look at the narrative around the different in the United States, whether the blue or the red. In the Bahamian context, although we only have two major political parties, we have what I call, and I quote unquote term, the sleepers party. Those little smaller parties that have very, very good ideas and have very, very good individuals. All right. Let me give you this joke, Brother Miller and others. I have a brother. He will never vote for the major two parties in the Bahamas. If you ever hear in a particular constituency this candidate with one vote in this polling division, believe you me, that is my brother. And so he doesn't believe in the mainstream political parties. All right. And then when we look at political parties in terms of the economic aspect, do they have a social conscience? Do they Are they socially conscious or aware? Are they respectful of the separation of church and state? Or are they meddlers? Do they like to get in person's private business? All these questions a voter will need to put to him or herself, and whether or not, and to inform, and not to inform discussion, whether or not who they.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Pacenti. Ms. Kathleen, your view. It's your money that has the potential to also be affected when an election has occurred and a party takes governance. Talk to us about that and how individuals should take serious thought of participating in this process, because it could affect your bottom line financially.
Yes. When in my first comments, I indicated the difference between the political structure in the Bahamas versus the political structure in the United States. In the United States, you have several tiers. So you have a good, what I would call a checked and balanced system. The top of your has to receive the actual assent from lower levels. That person does not have an absolute right to do whatever crosses their mind or whatever they may want to do because they woke up today and said, I had a dream about this and I think this is going to work. They don't have that right. In our particular environment in the Bahamas, because we have a single election once every 5 years, it is very important for us to understand that one vote for that 5 years can turn around our entire economic structure. If you have persons that are elected that do not have the knowledge base required Because you're talking about people that by one vote will run your country for 5 years.
Wow.
There's no stop or check on them. In the United States, you have governors, you have senators, you have an independent judiciary, and they are all subject to your electoral process. We don't have that. We have one single election. That election, those leaders govern our country straight across the board. So they're elected, they become the legislative, and they become the executive. That's two arms of our democratic system, automatically with that one vote. And the only other arm is the judiciary. And guess what? It is that same governance structure that recommends our judges to be selected. We are not elected as judges, we are selected. And so I just point that out to show how by that one vote, you are dealing with your total economic structure. If those persons or that group of persons get together and they're weak economically, the decisions they make can impact you severely. Today, there was a comment made on a talk show about the cost of land in the Bahamas, the cost of purchase of land. And what happened was in 1992, when we had a dramatic, again, landslide victory, we had a piece of legislation that was called the Land Holding Persons Act. What that piece of legislation did, it protected the mass sale of Bahamian real estate to persons who were capable of buying it because they have money, lots of money. And so therefore you had people buying our islands and keys, just acres and acres, like they would buy 2,000 acres on an island. And so the persons who are elected, you know, we have these things called projects, developmental projects. And so there's a system where investors can receive large acreages for small money, nominal money, as a trade-off for the project or investment they're going to bring to the Bahamas. And because of that, so you have places like the Albany properties. Those properties, once they are developed in that context, are sold for millions of dollars. Your average Bahamian will never, ever be able to purchase in there, ever, in their lifetime or their generations to come. That is how severely a political regime, once elected, can impact the economic, not just the economy of the country, you know, but the economic worth of our individual citizenry. It's a dangerous thing not to participate in an election, and it's a dangerous thing not to participate in actions that happen in your country. People need to rise up in the Bahamas because of that particular structure, and they need to object when they hear a certain law or piece of legislation is on the books. We have to read it. You know, we don't read well. And most people say, I don't know it because of the same thing. It's not going to impact me. It will impact you.
Yes.
That one thing that was done in 1992 has shifted the ability of the majority of Bahamians to purchase land in areas where their properties can appreciate in value.
Wow.
So I find that's, you know, that's the kind of significant impact that happens from an electoral process.
Wow, it does affect your
Also,
money.
I'll say this before you go to Guy.
Yes.
If we are aware of our power by election, once we participate in election, it should motivate you to be more community minded and to listen to what's happening and to catch it before it happens.
Wow. That is so good. That is so good. Guy, you're there once again in Alabama, here in the United States, the general election. The election is tomorrow. And so there are millions of individuals that are preparing to go and vote tomorrow. It's your money that is also on the table. There are schools that have to be built. There is infrastructure that the government is looking at doing and bringing to various areas of a state or a city. A lot of people don't even go that far. Sometimes it's all about they're voting tomorrow for the president. Talk about that other part of making sure that when you go to vote, you're aware that there is other things on the table.
Right, right. And I appreciate that you use the examples of school, Ricardo, because I think that is part of it. When we think of your pocketbook and what's going to bring money to it and financial security, I think you don't have to only sort of look at, hey, you know, I did this payment in the middle of the pandemic so that you can keep food on the table. I think informed voters take it a step further and say, you know, are they making the appropriate investments in the school system, in the infrastructure, right? That's going to create jobs in the long run. Are they doing things that are going to allow small businesses to thrive or our current employers to thrive, to invite investment into particular areas? But at the same time, are they balancing it? You know, is the wealth being evenly distributed, or is the tax burden being borne by the poorest among us while, you know, the most rich continue to thrive, right? And I think they have to take a really intense view at what sort of the party's sound bites are, but go beneath it to understand how those policies been working when they have been implemented. You know, so when it comes to the bottom line, I have to think not just sort of short term, but the long term and all of those things that are going to influence ultimately the economics of our country, right? Are we going to continue to engage in trade wars, or are we going to try to be involved in institutions that allow for free trade to grow things? Are we going to also protect workers, right, and their rights so that they continue to be paid a living wage? You know, so these are all fair questions that really need to be put to our potential legislatures so they can understand that this is important to us. And we can't just sort of say, oh, it sounds good, looks good, I'm going to vote for it. I think we have to really think critically about whether or not this is the best policy to pursue, and has it historically worked or hasn't it?
Wow. Because go ahead, Pasendi.
I just wanted to mention this real quick. The adaptability of individuals who we vote for is very important. We're presently in a major pandemic, okay? Our whole educational system, as we know it, had to adjust. So how adaptable are the party or the individuals that we are voting for? And personally, I told you at Miller, we laugh about it, about living in urban community, but it's a very telling thing in the urban areas when we have school that's supposed to be 100% online. However, the educational system have not adapted, or the children who are involved in the educational system have not adapted. In other words, they have no technological device, the Wi-Fi, all those things. It's called adaptability when we look at the education. So that has a play on economics and also the political stance of any major campaign.
That is so good. Hey guys, we're going to bring this in. I appreciate you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Effective Living. We're doing a live conversation tomorrow in a few hours. A lot of people will be getting on some lines, and it's going to be an exciting time tomorrow evening when you hear those numbers come in. I don't think there is any area in the United States where City, as you mentioned, we would commonly hear during electoral night, one vote for a person or a party. They don't do that particular.
We'll head to the Bahamas.
we'll hear it in the Bahamas. One vote. I was like, who probably the candidate gave that vote. Probably the candidate voted for themselves. But let's talk about bringing this to a close and just talking about voting as an opportunity for change. Please explain that. And we want to start with Ms. Kathleen and go back to Guy and then Pasenti.
I think voting is certainly in a general election, voting is your only opportunity to effect a change in your country's governance. That is, it's so important. If, some people say it very casually, but I think it has some depth sometimes. If what you had is something that you don't like, you're not satisfied with, over the years of their rule, they have not kept their word. They have just had too many excuses for failure. Then they say, I'm going to try something new. That's what the young man told me. I said, but you had such a wonderful MP. She went over and above. He says, let me tell you something. If it was for my MP, she would still be in. But her party failed because they did not live up to the same standard of representation she did in our constituency. He said it isn't for her that we shifted. We shifted because overall that party did not satisfy us that they can keep their word or that they even cared about their word. So we said, let's try something different. As simple as that, they do that. And so when you are in a small community like we are, the impact is that important.
Wow, thank you very much. Guy, voting an opportunity for change.
Yeah.
Please explain.
No, absolutely. I think that, as we mentioned all throughout this conversation today, the critical importance of making sure that you get out to vote, to exercise that right for people that people died for. And if you see something that you don't like about a particular candidate, then this is your opportunity to really get them out of there and vote for some change. And we see that, and particularly in our two-party system, you tend to see the pendulum swing back and forth. However, I want to highlight that not all hope is lost after, for us, November 3rd, whether this candidate wins or this candidate wins. At the end of the day, I firmly believe that change can happen outside of the electoral process. This is just one avenue that we have to let our voice be heard, but it's not the only one. And quite frankly, I find that we really need to rise up as a people, as a community, as church organizations, to step into the void, quite honestly, that government often lacks, right? You'd be surprised the power that one person who's motivated can make a difference in an entire community outside of our oftentimes broken electoral system. So yes, take advantage of that, but that's just one piece of the puzzle. And the real work starts on November 4th, where you continue to move forward some of these changes that you don't even necessarily have to get on the ballot to make a difference.
That is so good. Pasenti?
Every election is determined by people who show up to vote. And so when I look at that, I would normally encourage, whether in the Bahamas or the Bahamian context, for persons to look at their candidates, look at the parties that we have, and also do not be so narrow-minded looking at the mainstream parties, but also look at those sleeper parties, those third parties, and to ensure that you have an informed decision about who you will vote for. All right. Not only, also we tend to put a lot of our hopes, our aspirations in political parties. But you know what? we have both religious leaders and civic leaders who always speak truth to power. And and so we have to look at how we can marry both the religious and also the political realm to ensure that our people, our citizenry, is empowered at the end of the day. Yes? And so it's not only the political directorates. We have a great responsibility, those who are both religious leaders and civic leaders, to empower the next generation and to inform the next generation about what are their rights and responsibility, as it were.
Listen, guys, y'all have done such a wonderful job. But in closing remarks, this comment pushes the issue of the community is depending on you. Be it tomorrow here in the United States, or be it when the Prime Minister declares an election in the Bahamas. You need to participate in the process. Ms. Kathleen, closing remark with in regards to that.
I agree with both what Guy has said and Quinton. I think at the end of the day, we have to, as individuals, empower ourselves. A part of our empowerment system is our faith. Our faith in God gives us no fear. See, once you remove the element of fear, then no man can actually defeat you, whatever stance they may take. Because you walk with a different type of power that they don't understand or may understand, and therefore will know that when you call on that power, I call that my holy power. When you call that, you walking on a different kind of environment there, and no weapon form can stop you, because you got that kind of power. You don't need the political power.
Yeah.
I agree with my friends here.
I'm going to go over to Quinton Baseni and let Guy, being that tomorrow is the American election here in the country, I'm going to let him close it out. But Quinton Baseni, the challenge for those who are in the United States, those in Alabama who should be voting, and then obviously those who should vote when the Prime Minister calls an election there in the Bahamas, or anyone that's watching anywhere in the world. The importance of them understanding their community is depending on them. Why vote? Go ahead.
Well, to all of my friends in Alabama, whether in Anniston, Jacksonville, Calhoun County, Guy. I used to live in Calhoun County or Cobb County, or whether you're in the Bahamas. Listen, your community depends on not only who you vote for, also it's about what you vote. Your community depends on that because it will inform whether your community moves forward, whether your community get the particular what we call the social needs or the improvements that it requires, and also whether or not our community moves further in the 21st century. All right, we are the sum. I always call it of whatever we decide. We are the sum all, and so whether or not we exercise our rights as a citizen, it will automatically impact upon us and in generations to come. So I always encourage anyone in the community, listen, participate in the electoral process. Make sure be informed. Educate yourself. And not only educate yourself, but educate others about what's happening. Pass on information. Because sometimes we are somewhat hoarders of information. Pass on information. Whether you're on the pulpit, whether you're on the park, pass on information to inform the citizenry about the choices that they can make or potentially going to make. It's very powerful and it can be impactful.
Excellent, Quinton Baseni. And Guy Marino closes out. The community is depending on you as a voter.
Nope, that's exactly right. And I strongly believe, to whom much is given, much is required. And we've been given a unique opportunity tomorrow for those of us in the United States to let our voices to be heard, to plant seeds that are going to really flourish for the next generation, to help lead our country in the best way we possibly can envision through the appointment of our elected officials that represent us in making legislation. And so my encouragement is to really, we know that our people perish because of lack of knowledge. So make sure that you are out there informing yourself, making your voice be heard, taking advantage of this great opportunity that so many have fought and died for by going out there and casting your vote. And not just that, but after that, living each day to better this place that you've been planted in your sphere of influence for the greater glory. So I appreciate you and your ears today, and make sure that if you haven't voted like Ricardo, that you get out there with me and get in those lines and let your voice be heard.
All right.
Get on out there tomorrow in those lines and definitely let your voice be heard. And then get back home, cook a nice meal, sit down in the front of the television and watch this thing play out. Guys, thank you very much for participating in this. I know it has stirred the interest of a lot of people who may know that election for them as a country may be coming and has not arrived yet. And then for those who are planning on participating in the process tomorrow, a lot to think about. And so God bless you all. Thank you for giving us some of your time tonight. Effective Living Community, please give a shout out to these three incredible individuals. Love and appreciate you. You all have a good night. Thank you for joining me tonight. Everyone, Effective Living is challenging you to participate in the process. God bless you guys. Have a good night.
God bless you all. Bye.